buenas tardes. I did not expect to be recording already now that I am a stay at home mom homeschooling my son. But today the sun is out, it's shining. So I felt just a little bit inspired to kind of get some work done on my YouTube channel. So today I'm going to be talking to you about Writer's Workshop in the dual language classroom and how I've kind of been running it as far as kindergarten. Okay, now as a teacher for the past 9 years, I have been using Writer's Workshop, adapted by a couple of different authors. First, Lucy Calkins, because that's originally what we had learned when I was in college studying. And then later on, maybe about 3 years after I had used the Lucy Calkins book to adapt it to my classroom, our school district switched to a study of units by the Heinemann program. And we had in online access to it our first official year. But that's while we were teaching virtual online because of COVID. So I've adapted it many different ways. I've adapted it for the kindergarten classroom, the first grade classroom, the virtual classroom, and my dual language classroom. And so I want to talk to you just kind of a little bit about what that looks like. And then I would like to showcase one of my very favorite units. And it's the perfect unit for you, in my opinion, to get started if your district is really pushing that you're using these story of units in your classroom. So my name is Brandy. If you're new to the channel, I'm a former kindergarten teacher. Now I'm a homeschool mom. I have over 20 years of experience in the classroom, and I would like to help you adapt your units for the kindergarten classroom, more specifically for the dual language classroom. Okay, now we are going to kind of scaffold writing for the school year, beginning with drawing, adding in letter sounds and shapes, and then slowly moving over to the overview of the units of study. Okay, let's try take two. I've had to give up my workspace and make that our homeschooling space now. So we're all making adjustments and trying to get used to not all of mommy's time is my son's time. So okay, so let's get back into it. Okay, so like we talked about, introducing or kind of scaffolding writing when our school district really wants us to be using this Heinemann resource or the units of study or the Writer's Workshop model, and it is not exactly developmentally appropriate for our classroom. So after we explore shapes, learning how to draw, learning how to kind of add illustrations, those types of things, we have to get into those units of study, okay, or we should be. So after the initial shapes, beginning, sound, labeling unit, we go into launching the Writer's Workshop model, which is where we are going to be building routines and kind of building up the identity of the writer. Okay, so your students kind of finding themselves as an author. Then we move into show and tell writing, where we're going to connect oral storytelling to written work. We spend a lot of time here moving into true narratives that honor our families and our culture. And then persuasive writing, where we use writing to create change. Now, one thing we're not talking about, which we will in a future video, is procedure writing, which I think is extremely important at the kindergarten level. And kids are almost naturally good at the procedure writing, because procedure writing is basically about following a routine. And that's what kindergarten is. It's following these routines and procedures. So procedure writing is by far one of my favorite units to teach. But it is an ongoing unit basically from day one till the end of the year. And we will take some time to do some of those explicitly, but that's more of kind of just a model and do. Okay. Now, how is this relevant to the dual language classroom? These units naturally align with language learning standards, and we can reinforce and help our students by making it extremely visual and very narrative. Okay. Now, scaffolding with visuals means that we're going to use drawings as a precursor to writing. So we're going to show examples of drawing with shapes. We're going to have those visuals everywhere. We're going to explicitly teach those instructions. We're also going to focus on phonemic awareness in both languages. All right, starting with sounds, we're going to demonstrate how to introduce initial sounds and labels in both English and Spanish. We don't want to exclude a language through this process. We don't want to discourage the writer at all. Okay, and then we're going to move on to cultural relevance. So we want to highlight how narratives can incorporate stories from the students' families and their bilingual experiences. Okay, it is so important as a language teacher to be able to make that home and school connection, but also not push to the side that being bilingual is part of their life. And we want to be bringing in the families as much as possible. We really want those world connections. Okay. Now, let's go into some practical strategies and tools. Okay. Mini lessons is the best thing in my opinion. It's the best part of Writer's Workshop. Okay. In the mini lesson, we are going to be acting out scenarios. We're going to be drawing. We're going to be using characters from stories to model. And then we are going to encourage students to take some risks with language in both languages. Okay, we're going to be doing lots of modeling, lots of practice. I do, you do, we do. Okay, now, story sparks and sentence starters. Okay, we want to demonstrate using story sparks to help them generate ideas, and really this goes across units. This is not explicit to narrative writing. Okay, we need to be providing bilingual sentence starters and scaffold for them. Okay, I'm not talking about translating. We are not translating. We're not translators. Okay, we are simply bilingual. All right, and then after the mini lessons in action, sentence starters or story sparks, we go into conferring and feedback. Now, if you are familiar at all with John Hattie and his visible learning techniques, you will learn that feedback is a super effective learning strategy for kids, and it is important throughout the day. Okay, and as writers, they are going to need and even want your feedback. Okay, so we're going to model giving feedback to students. We're going to emphasize them to be encouraging to each other to move on to the next steps, whatever those may be. Okay, now I'm not talking just student to teacher, I'm also talking student to student, because during the Writer's Workshop model, your students are going to be conferring with each other and they are going to be sharing with each other. So you want to teach them how to give feedback and how to receive it as well. Okay, now linking all of this to your curriculum, we're going to do an introduction of the units. Okay, and then we're going to talk specifically how your curriculum complements other resources that you could use. Okay, because let's face it, as dual language teachers, we go into this kind of knowing that the curriculum is not always going to be meeting our specific needs. We are going to have to find our own resources at times, and we are going to have to get really good at integrating those all together to make all parties happy. Your district, your admin, your students, even your own PLCs, okay? Because they're going to want things to be cohesive. All right. So today specifically, I'm going to showcase for you just my very first unit of Writer's Workshop. And then in the comments below, I'm just going to ask for your help at kind of what you would like to see. Okay. Now, let's come back to that in a minute. Let's showcase this Writer's Workshop unit, and then we'll get into my big ask. Okay, now if you haven't been to my Teachers Pay Teacher store, this is Dual Kinder and Mas, Dual Kinder y Mas. This is the Writer's Workshop #1 unit, okay? Okay, in this Writer's Workshop model, we are going to start with scripted lessons where students are going to learn the very basics. They're going to start using crayons. And then we are going to go into where there's an I do, the teacher models, the students get time to practice, and then they go on to a little bit of independent work. Lesson 2, students are going to talk about different types of writing and how to become an author and what authors are and what they do. Excuse me, lessons 3, 4, and 5 are going to go into actually setting up the workshop model within your classroom. Okay, now the way you adapt this for your classroom could be completely different, but if you have no idea how to get your classroom ready for Writer's Workshop or how to structure it, there's going to be lessons on how to keep your Writer's Workshop folder together. Where do you go for getting new paper when you've run out of paper? It's also going to talk to you about how to share your stories. So each day or every couple of days, you're going to provide your students with opportunities to share their writing with each other, and you're going to have to model this for them and allow them time to give each other feedback. That's going to be really important. Okay, each lesson is structured. You're going to have your objectives for the day. You're going to have a list of materials that you need, and then you're going to have a script for the routines that you're going to follow on that day. So maybe for day 6, okay, your objective is going to be to use more color in your drawings, okay? And then the materials that you are going to need, for that day are a book, okay? Maybe your model book is Harold and the Purple Crayon or The Dot, and then you're going to use that book kind of as your pure text for the day to refer back to when you're talking about how the author and the illustrator use lots of colors and details. Okay, and then there's going to be a script for the teacher. So you don't have to write your own lesson plan. You do need to read through it a day or two in advance so that you can prepare the materials. Some days you're going to need an anchor chart. You want to make sure you have the students' folders, their writing folders ready the day that you need to use them in the classroom. It's even going to go through the simple steps on creating lessons that teach them how to use their imagination. We have to remember that our students are very different than they were even 5 years ago, and some of them have no idea how to use their imagination. Okay, technology has made it very easy for us to kind of be simple-minded. So this is going to kind of teach them how to use their imagination. It's also going to tie in after we go through how to use crayons, how to use pencils, how to use your writing folder, how to ask for more paper, how to share your story, all of these different types of things. Then it's slowly going to scaffold into drawing an image and adding a beginning sound. Okay, and you're going to model for your students every single lesson. And you may spend 1 or 2 days on a lesson because you feel like your students aren't ready to move on. And that's kind of like the beauty of Writer's Workshop. You can take a little extra time if you need to. Now, in a dual language classroom, for example, my classroom was a half day. So I only had my students for 3 hours. And I was expected to teach all of their content in those 3 hours. So I would not get to Writer's Workshop every single day. Okay. And some days we might have only had 15 minutes for a lesson. And then some days maybe we would have 45 minutes for a lesson. So these scripts are very adaptable to the amount of time that you have. Okay. Now, all the way down to the end, there's going to be anchor charts to help you understand the rules for writers. There's also going to be a rubric, so you know the expectation, or maybe you want to show the students the rubric before writing even begins, so they kind of know what the goal is. And then we start over kind of with how to draw. Okay, now there are some extra lessons that are going to teach the students about different types of lines if they weren't successful with being creative on their own. There's going to be a lesson that teaches them about slanted lines, curved lines, shapes that they know to help them form different things. Okay, there's going to be anchor charts available within the lesson plans that you can print off or display on your whiteboard. And then it's going to give you some suggestions for read alouds. Maybe the read aloud is going to be Jabari Salta, or maybe the read aloud is El Juego de las Formas. Maybe the pure writing model or mentor text, whatever you want to call it, is No David. Okay, so go ahead and think about the materials that you're going to need to talk about how a person feels. Okay, you're going to need graphics and models of the different facial expressions that people make, or the different types of hair that characters have. Your students are going to ask you, how do I draw? All of the time. Okay, so you want to prepare them and set them up for success for Writer's Workshop with this really unique unit that is very much developmentally appropriate for the pre-kinder or even kindergarten setting, to give them confidence and boost them into the units of study. Which is very rigorous, and even the jump from kindergarten to first grade is a very large jump. We go from labeling in kindergarten to writing 2 to 3 sentences on a page, and maybe your book is 3 to 4 pages long. Okay, so there is a very significant jump. We want to keep this developmentally appropriate. We want to keep it appropriate for the dual language classroom, and we want it to be fun and build confidence in our little writers. Okay, now that I've talked to you a little bit about the Writer's Workshop bundle for beginners in the dual language classroom, here is my ask. Okay, if I were to develop slides or a YouTube video of mini lessons, which type of mini lessons would you like to see? Okay, would you like to see a unit on narrative writing? Would you like to see a unit on procedure writing? Would you like to see a unit on even the Writer's Workshop writing for beginners? Okay, would you like to have a model lesson ready to go on YouTube to guide you through the first 4 or 5 lessons while you find your bearings? Okay, we know that our schools are asking us a lot. We know that we are overworked and we don't have enough time for planning. And one of the things that we tend to let go by the wayside is writing, science, and social studies. So what I would like to do for you is make the process very seamless and easy, where it doesn't seem overwhelming for you day to day, but also creating meaningful products. Okay. It is important in our classroom that we are adapting these units to support our bilingual learners. It is important also that the resources that we have available to us are actually going to be usable. Okay, so I want to encourage you to share your experiences, ask questions in the comments, and then also visit my Teachers Pay Teachers store, subscribe for more videos, and follow me to see any new videos that I'm posting. And let me know in the comments what you would like to see, because I would love to still continue to be a resource for you as a dual language teacher.